Some of the most unsettling horror films ever made are not found in modern, jump scare heavy franchises, but in the forgotten corners of 1960s cinema. This period saw filmmakers create genuinely disturbing masterpieces that relied on psychological terror, subtle suggestions, and a deep understanding of human anxieties. Here is a look at some of the most unnerving and overlooked films from this golden age of horror.
This bizarre family drama, directed by Jack Hill, tells the story of the Mary family, who suffer from a genetic condition that causes them to mentally and physically regress as they age, eventually developing homicidal tendencies. The film's brilliance lies in its ability to make you simultaneously care for and be terrified of these characters. It has a dark fairy tale quality that is both whimsical and deeply disturbing. Lon Chaney Jr. delivers one of his final great performances as Bruno, the family's caretaker, but it is the young actors who truly sell the horror with their innocent, almost playful violence. Shot in 1964 but not released until 1967 due to a production company's bankruptcy, the film's proto-slasher sensibility and genuine pathos were ahead of their time, a mix that wouldn't become common until the 1970s.
This British horror gem, also known as Burn Witch Burn in some markets, takes the classic My Wife is Witch premise and turns it into a genuinely unsettling psychological thriller. The film follows a psychology professor who discovers his wife is using witchcraft to protect his career. When he tries to debunk her superstitions, he inadvertently triggers a series of supernatural events that threaten to destroy his life. The film's strength lies in how it grounds the supernatural in very real social anxieties, such as academic jealousy and career pressures. Peter Weingart perfectly portrays the rational skeptic, making his gradual acceptance of the supernatural feel earned and believable. The film's final act, which takes place in a children's carnival, is particularly chilling and will make you question the innocence of funhouses.
Roger Corman's adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's short story is a masterclass in claustrophobic terror. Ray Milland stars as a man so consumed by a fear of being buried alive that he designs an elaborate, custom-made tomb to ensure his safety. The film taps into a primal, universal anxiety and crafts an entire nightmare around it. What makes this film special among Corman's other Poe adaptations is its ability to get inside the protagonist's head, turning the narrative into a fever dream of paranoia, where the line between reality and hallucination is constantly blurred. The various coffins and burial devices are brilliantly designed, resembling medieval torture devices disguised as safety equipment.
This psychological horror film is a legendary cinematic event, not just for the on-screen terror, but for the real-life rivalry between its stars, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Davis plays Baby Jane Hudson, a former child star who torments her wheelchair-bound sister, Blanche, played by Crawford. The film is not about physical abuse, but about the psychological warfare between two women trapped by their pasts. Davis's fearless performance as Baby Jane, a pathetic yet terrifying character lost in her own delusions, is a highlight. The film's grotesque makeup and its unflinching look at aging and the destructive nature of fame set a new standard for psychological horror and spawned a subgenre of hag exploitation films.
Director Robert Aldrich followed up Baby Jane with this Southern Gothic nightmare, once again starring Bette Davis as a woman haunted by a decades-old murder. The film has a palpable atmosphere of decay and madness, with the crumbling mansion becoming a character in itself. What makes this film special is how it plays with audience expectations, constantly pulling the rug out from under you. Olivia de Havilland joins the cast as a cousin, giving a masterclass in manipulative psychology. The film's brutal violence, including a shocking decapitation, was ahead of its time, as was its exploration of gaslighting, making it feel incredibly modern.
Peter Bogdanovich's directorial debut is a chilling examination of modern American violence. The film follows two parallel stories: an aging horror actor, Boris Karloff, who feels his gothic monsters are no longer relevant, and a clean-cut young man who becomes a sniper. The two stories converge in a deeply unsettling climax at a drive-in movie theater. What makes Targets so effective is its realism. The killer isn't a monster, but an ordinary man who decides to start shooting people, a type of random violence that felt shocking in 1968 and eerily prophetic today. Karloff's performance adds a meta-commentary as he plays out the end of classical horror, acknowledging that real-world violence has made cinematic monsters seem quaint by comparison.
Although it was released in 1970, this film's style and themes are deeply rooted in the 60s. Director Dario Argento's debut is credited with launching the giallo genre of Italian horror. The story follows an American writer in Rome who witnesses an attempted murder and becomes obsessed with solving the case. Argento's visual style is immediately apparent, with every shot composed like a work of art. The film uses color, shadow, and a labyrinthine mystery to create a dreamlike atmosphere. The violence is stylized but effective, and the film rewards multiple viewings with its clever clues and red herrings. Japanese horror in the 1960s was doing things that Western cinema wouldn't attempt for decades. Kaneto Shindo's film tells the story of two women who survive by killing lost samurai in a field of tall grass. The landscape itself becomes a character, creating a sense of isolation and primal fear. The film brilliantly blends psychological and supernatural horror, with the supernatural elements feeling like natural extensions of the characters' emotional states. The most unforgettable sequence involves a terrifying mask, leading to one of the most disturbing reveals in horror cinema. The film's groundbreaking exploration of female sexuality and violence feels provocative even today. Masaki Kobayashi's anthology of Japanese ghost stories is as much an art film as a horror movie, but its scares are genuine and haunting. Each segment, based on stories by Lafcadio Hearn, is visually stunning, shot in vibrant technicolor to resemble a series of paintings. The most famous segment, Hoichi the Earless, tells the story of a blind musician who becomes caught between the living and the dead. The sequence where Buddhist sutras are painted on his body to make him invisible to ghosts is both beautiful and terrifying. At nearly 3 hours, Kwaidan is an investment, but it offers some of the most haunting imagery ever put on film. This Japanese psychological horror film, directed by Hiroshihara Teshigahara, explores themes of identity and human nature. A man whose face is destroyed in an industrial accident receives a realistic mask which he uses to explore the darker aspects of his behavior. The horror in this film works on a philosophical level, asking questions about what makes us who we are and whether our appearance determines our actions. The protagonist's gradual transformation from victim to predator is deeply unsettling. The film's stark black-and-white cinematography and unusual angles create a constant sense of unease. Mario Bava's directorial debut is a masterpiece of Gothic horror that launched his career and made Barbara Steele a horror icon. The film tells the story of a 17th century witch who returns from the dead to seek revenge on her descendants. Bava's incredible visual style is what makes the film special. Every frame is composed like a Gothic painting, using light and shadow to create a dreamlike atmosphere. Steele's dual performance as the evil witch Asa and her innocent descendant Katya is iconic. The opening sequence, in which a spiked mask is hammered onto Steele's face, is incredibly brutal for 1960 and sets the tone for everything that follows. Roger Corman's adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's story is one of his best. Vincent Price stars as Nicholas Medina, a man driven to madness by his wife's death and his family's dark history. Price's performance is a masterclass as he gradually transforms from a sympathetic widower into a genuinely frightening madman. The film's production design, especially the torture chamber, is spectacular for its budget, and the titular pendulum sequence is a masterclass in building suspense. The film also delves into themes of guilt and family legacy with a twist ending that recontextualizes everything that came before.
Robert Wise's adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel is widely considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. The film follows a group investigating supernatural phenomena at Hill House, focusing on a repressed woman named Eleanor Vance. The film's terror comes from what it doesn't show. There are no visible ghosts, no gore, and no jump scares. Instead, the horror is created through sound design, camera angles, and psychological suggestion. The unsettling sound of unexplained pounding on walls and whispers echoing through the house create a sense that the house is alive and aware of its inhabitants.
This masterpiece of ambiguous horror, directed by Jack Clayton, is based on Henry James's novella The Turn of the Screw. Deborah Kerr plays a governess who believes the children in her care are being influenced by the ghosts of their former caretakers. The film's black and white cinematography is stunning, using light and shadow to suggest a supernatural presence. The ambiguity is what makes it so disturbing. You're never sure if the ghosts are real or if the governess is having a breakdown. The children's behavior is genuinely unsettling as they seem to know things they shouldn't.
Herc Harvey's low-budget masterpiece proves that great horror doesn't need expensive effects. The film follows a woman who survives a car accident, but finds herself strangely disconnected from the world and drawn to an abandoned carnival pavilion. The film's dreamlike atmosphere is its greatest strength, making you question what is real from the very beginning. The minimalist approach and desolate locations create an incredible sense of isolation. The final dance sequence is one of the most haunting images ever captured on film.
These films represent a golden age of horror that valued atmosphere, suspense, and psychological terror over cheap thrills. They proved that horror can be an art form and that the best monsters are often the ones that live inside our own heads. For a truly scary movie night, skip the latest formulaic sequel and seek out one of these forgotten gems. Your nightmares will thank you.